In the chaotic final days of World War II, as Allied forces swept across Germany, a unique and often overlooked chapter of history unfolded. It involves female German prisoners of war and the Black American soldiers who became their guards. The initial interactions were fraught with tension, shaped by years of deeply ingrained propaganda and the brutal realities of war. But what happened next was something neither side could have predicted. This is the story of how fear and prejudice gave way to an unexpected understanding. The war had been devastating. Cities lay in ruins, and the German population faced an uncertain future. Among them were thousands of women who had served the German war effort in various roles, from auxiliaries and nurses to administrative staff, POWs. As the front lines collapsed, many of these women found themselves captured and designated as prisoners of war. Their initial fear was immense. They had been fed a constant diet of propaganda that portrayed Allied soldiers, particularly soldiers of color, as vengeful and barbaric. The prospect of being guarded by Black American G.I.s filled them with a deep-seated dread. They expected the worst, bracing for cruelty and retribution for the horrors their nation had inflicted upon the world. For the Black American soldiers of units like the Quartermaster Corps, their journey had been one of fighting a war on two fronts. They battled the German army abroad, while simultaneously fighting against racism and segregation within their own military. These men were often relegated to non-combat logistical roles, tasked with managing supplies, transportation, and, eventually, overseeing POW camps. They were well aware of the racist ideology that fueled the German war machine, an ideology that mirrored the discrimination they faced back home. When they were assigned to guard German prisoners, including women, they were met with a complex mix of professional duty and personal feelings. The first encounters in the makeshift POW camps were tense. The German women were sullen, defiant, and visibly terrified. Kept their distance, whispering amongst themselves, their eyes wide with apprehension whenever a black soldier approached. The G.I.s, in turn, were cautious and professional. They had a job to do: maintain order, distribute rations, and ensure the security of the camp. They had heard the stories and knew the prisoners saw them through a lens of racist caricature. The air was thick with mistrust, a silent standoff between the captured and the captors. But as days turned into weeks, the rigid structure of war began to soften under the simple, shared weight of humanity. The black soldiers didn't live up to the monstrous image painted by propaganda. Instead of brutality, the German women witnessed discipline and fairness. The G.I.s performed their duties with a stoic professionalism that slowly chipped away at the wall of fear. They distributed the meager rations of food and water without prejudice. They treated the sick and the wounded, offering what little medical comfort they could. These small, consistent acts of decency were a powerful counter-narrative to a lifetime of indoctrination. A significant turning point often came through non-verbal communication. A shared glance, a small nod of acknowledgement. Perhaps a soldier noticed a prisoner shivering and found an extra blanket. Or maybe it was the simple act of a G.I. sharing a piece of his own chocolate or a cigarette, a small luxury in a world of deprivation. These gestures, tiny in the grand scheme of the war, were monumental in the confines of the camp. They were moments of human connection that transcended the uniforms and the languages that separated them. The German women began to see not a stereotype, but individual men. They saw their exhaustion, their discipline, and their humanity. They saw men who, despite being part of a conquering army, showed restraint and a surprising level of compassion. For the women, this was a profound and disorienting experience. Everything they had been taught to believe about their supposed inferiors was being dismantled before their very eyes, not by words, but by actions. For the black soldiers, the experience was equally complex. Guarding the very people who represented a hateful ideology that oppressed people of color worldwide was a surreal task. Some soldiers undoubtedly felt a sense of poetic justice, yet many also saw in the prisoners' faces not just the enemy, but the tired, hungry, and defeated victims of a catastrophic war. They saw women who were caught in the gears of a machine they didn't fully control. In a strange way, the soldiers could relate to their plight of being judged and dehumanized based on group identity. These shared experience of being the other, though vastly different in context, created a subtle, unspoken bridge of understanding. There are documented accounts and anecdotal stories that highlight this transformation. One story tells of a black medic who tended to a sick German female prisoner with the same care he would give to a fellow soldier, earning the silent, grateful respect of the entire barracks. Another speaks of G as teaching a few English words to the curious younger women, creating fleeting moments of light and laughter in the grim reality of the camp. These interactions weren't about friendship or romance. They were about recognizing the humanity in one another. The prisoners began to understand that their captors were not the monsters they feared, and the soldiers saw the human cost of the ideology they were fighting against. This period was a brief, unique intersection of race, gender, and the aftermath of war. The fear the German women felt was very real, born from a lifetime of lies. The kindness and professionalism of the Black American soldiers became an undeniable truth that shattered those lies. It was a quiet, uncelebrated victory of human decency over ingrained hatred. It showed that even in the darkest of times, in the shadow of unimaginable conflict, our shared humanity can find a way to shine through, creating unexpected moments of grace and understanding. Testament to the fact that people are more than the ideologies forced upon them, and that true character is revealed in how we treat others, especially when we hold all the power. Thank you for watching. If you found this story meaningful, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more hidden histories. We'll see you next time.